Welcome to the Entrepreneur Mindset Show. I'm here with Cale Hollis, an inspiring disruptor entrepreneur. I'm just going to press live for our Instagram audience. And then I'm going to introduce Cale in terms of how he might be disrupting an industry that, for the most part, has been running the way it has been for decades. I don't think there's been anybody that came up with this idea to disrupt, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. He'll share more about that. But as I've written up in the event post, what I love about these stories is that inspiring entrepreneurs and founders like Cale, their main focus is on creating accessibility, and sometimes often for underserved markets or untapped segments of the market. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Now, here's a little bit about Cale, a passionately inspired co-founder and the CEO of Servisor. Brings a decade of experience from some significant blue chips like Ernst & Young, BHP Billiton, First National Bank, and Massmart into the startup arena. For those of the global audiences that are here, these are some really mega big blue chip corporates in South African context. Diverse industry insights and a background in molecular, chemical, and cellular biology. Interesting, right? Cale drives the development of Servisor. His customer-centric approach and leadership finesse, coupled with a commitment to excellence, guide Servisor in delivering a simple, reliable, and intuitive solution. I like the ending there, an intuitive solution. In this debut venture, Cale's expertise ensures Servisor's success in meeting the evolving needs of car owners. So, without further ado, let's delve into this conversation. Let's start at the beginning, Cale. Thank you for being here and sharing the space with us today.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, so I always kick off with really, where did it all begin? You know, what was the big why when you started this business with your co-founders?
Yes, I mean, I think everyone's kind of had a similar experience to what I had when coming up with the idea for Servisor itself. So as most car owners whose car isn't under a maintenance plan or warranty plan, when your service light comes on, it like sends shivers down your spine. So I know firsthand when that light comes on, like you worry about, okay, what's going to come out that other side of that light. So I know for me, the one day that happened, and I took my car to go get serviced where I normally take it to get serviced, and actually realized that the place I took it to was actually closed down. So that's how much I stay into the know with my car, and I took it to a place that was closed down. So I had nowhere to go, and I couldn't remember where to take it else. And then some in the back of my mind, I remembered that I took it to a place in Johannesburg and quite far out in the West Rand. And before I did that, I took it to Mercedes-Benz in Sandton, and they gave me an astronomical quote. I mean, it was a ridiculous amount of money that they wanted to charge me for servicing my car. And then I took it to the other place that I previously did, and literally for a quarter of the price, they were going to do the same amount of work for a quarter of the price, which I thought was amazing and got me thinking like, well, surely it's the same thing. There's nothing changing. And there has to be something different. And luckily, I've surrounded myself with some really good people. And my business partner, who's been in the space for a very, very long time, I showed him the quote and said to him, geez, this can't be right. How can there be such disparity between two places when they're doing exactly the same amount of work? And that's how Servisor kind of came to fruition. And in its nutshell, that's your very own service advisor that's online, is essentially at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that, as you said, when that light comes on and there's an uncertainty, it's also a grudge purchase for us, right? We don't necessarily want to replace tires or fix our cars, and it's that purchase that you leave for very last if you can. So do tell us, I mean, what was beneath this for you, from what I can hear, is that you felt that, for no lack of a better word to describe it, there were sharks in this industry just simply trying to attack people that are innocent victims, so to speak, when they know that your car is needed. It's sometimes the driving force, excuse the pun there, for people that need to use their car for work, right? So was that the bigger why? I mean, because it's one thing you getting the quote, but was this more about being of service to others? So just tap in a little bit more, because I'm wanting to hear the real backstory behind why you were so passionately driven to do this.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, you're 100% right in terms of being a grudge purchase. I mean, most people will leave it, like you said, to the absolute last minute to get it done, and only because they really have to get it done will get their car serviced. But yeah, I mean, my one business partner has a very good saying in terms of the car motor space is kind of seen very close to politicians and lawyers in terms of the trust space. So yeah, so it's not a very good industry where we as consumers at the end of the day feel like we're getting ripped off and taken advantage of, and essentially there's no trusted authority in the space that you can say, okay, well, I need something done to my car. Will it be done to what it says it should be done? Are they doing the right work? Are they doing the right parts? Everything that goes along with it. So it's just something that's, as a consumer at the end of the day, you really have zero trust in the space, and that's been a big driving force for us in developing Servisor and making sure that there's a platform for consumers at the end of the day to feel like, that they are getting the best possible advice that they can with regards to getting their car service, and that their needs are at the forefront versus trying to be taken advantage of at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you're a guy. So for you, having felt that way and being called to start a business and disrupt a whole industry, imagine for us females, where typically we are stereotyped to not know anything, although some of us do. In fact, in my corporate stint, I had auto fitment and auto spares as an industry that I looked after. So I kind of had to know. But for those women out there that actually don't know, it is disheartening. One does not know where you stand. And so you almost feel fearful. And we pull in our partners or our fathers or our father-in-laws just so that you can feel a bit safe to be able to do so. But I want to move on to sort of the next part of our conversation. And because we are navigating the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, for you disrupting an entire industry, what has that been for you? What are some of your pain points as an entrepreneur that you've had to kind of overcome and still striving to move past present day?
Yeah, I mean, so it's not the easiest journey around. I mean, a lot of people say if it was easy, most people would do it. And at the end of the day, people don't. It's kind of hard to get going. But for me, the kind of the hardest part is just keeping going the whole time. And there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows. And when you do get to those lows, it's to carry on and knowing, okay, well, this is just a brief blip in the radar, and to carry on going. You've got something that will at the end of the day help the customer, and it's a really good product, and just making sure that you're staying committed and carrying on going along that way. I mean, that's, for me, it's been quite challenging, but I've been very fortunate and surrounded myself with some really, really, really great partners who are all serial entrepreneurs. They've done this before. It's like you're saying, my background's purely corporate. I've my entire workforce has been in that space, so I've never had to take that kind of risk before. And having the people around that have done it before and excuse me, have learned all the hard yards and can give you that advice and that's the motivation to keep going. Has been a really massive thing for me, myself, in this journey. So yeah, I mean that's for me in a nutshell why that's like the kind of lows I've kind of experienced, and then obviously the highs are extremely great. Like, you can't beat the highs of getting a yes or yes, someone's going to invest in your business, or they think this is a great idea, or even that first sale when it comes through the platform itself. It really is a great feeling.
No, for sure. I mean, I think about pain points that comes to mind for me is like the buy into this idea and this concept. That's sort of one hurdle I'm foreseeing that you might have had. And then you finally get that buy-in and you get the investors. So that's not the hurdle anymore. But what are some of the other typical pain points specifically that you've experienced?
So it can be quite a lonely journey as well. So I mean, like, you don't coming from a corporate background, you're going into life, I mean, obviously pre-COVID and all that, but going into office very regularly and having the different interactions. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out on your own, you don't have this massive environment. You're generally doing it at home, you're doing it on your own, you're bootstrapping as much as you can. And yeah, and that can be on its own quite challenging. So having to find specific times and moments to actually go out, to go see people, to go walk outside and go do everything, because otherwise you just get engrossed in it and stay indoors and essentially like kind of be in a cave at one space. But yeah, I mean, that comes with more kind of experience itself. Like, I've only recently now started to be more engaging in terms of that, going into the office now where we are, because we are live and things are going at a breakneck speed for us, which is great. But yeah, it's just, again, it can be quite a lonely journey. So again, having the right people around you and support system from a professional and personal perspective is great. So it will help you go on your journey.
So it's like working in the business and getting lost in the operational day-to-day, rather than working on the business and being a bit more strategic. So there is that fine line where we tend to just do it all. We've got to be jack of all trades, and then we lose sight about the bigger picture. That's what I'm hearing you say, at least, is that we get so engrossed in the operational side of things that we might lose sight of just going out there and having more conversations, getting to understand what people are doing and how they would receive this. Have you done any type of market surveys or focus groups before you went into this business?
So, excuse me. So we got a lot of market research from again, from our business partner who is in the space and has that industry knowledge from us. So a lot of what we have built is being built off not just our own perspective and our own interactions, but based on actual real customer feedback and understanding what their pain points are. You were mentioning it earlier about being a female in the space and not really understand. Like, I probably know very little when it comes to cars. I even often call my car the wrong make. So if I can do it and I can understand the system and it works for me, it literally can work for anyone. And that's always been a great kind of basis for us is if I can understand it and do it, then pretty much anyone else can.
Absolutely. I think that when I looked at your website and the ease of navigation and the fact that the trust for me is where it highlights that whatever you get quoted is what you're going to end up paying, So whereas typically within this industry, no, this is what your service costs at this service interval. And if there are potential other things to be done, this is an estimate. They always give you that estimate of what it's going to be. Whereas where you building confidence and trust in the Servisor brand is that whatever we give you as a quotation is what you're ultimately going to pay as the price for your service.
Yeah, so I mean,
correct?
100% correct. That's a very good point you're making. So from our side, all the information's there. It's just little cloak and daggers, and it isn't really shared with us as a retail customer. So we kind of demystifying that and making sure that you as a customer understand, well, this is what the manufacturer says for this specific service. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is exactly what needs to be done, and this is exactly how long it should take, and this is exactly how much it should cost you at the end of the day. So yeah, like that's our goal, is to make sure that irrespective of who you are, you get the exact same price. So whether you know a lot or very little, the numbers speak for itself, and you're getting the true price at the end of the day.
The other thing I know, what I like, what you said, is that you're designing with the customer in mind, the service. And often people are not doing that. They go out and they have this beautiful idea. I think this is what, in my experience, working closely with many entrepreneurs, they are so passionate and have their ideas so close to their heart, they forget that they need to get the most important insight from the customer themselves. So when you start, I'm back. Was that me that went, or is it your side?
No, it was you.
Apologies. It's
Oh,
raining here in Cape Town, so I'm not sure if that's got to do with it, but I know it's just as chilly in Johannesburg. Let me take this opportunity just to acknowledge the Instagram people that are here. Thank you for being here. Please don't hesitate to ask questions and share your experiences of having serviced your car. And absolutely a great opportunity to go and find out more about Servisor and their business. And do get in touch with Cale or go and look at the Servisor website, which we'll put onto the LinkedIn post anyway, just so that you can connect with Cale. But let's move on to the support, because that's another thing. Where is support lacking, and what do you need specifically? Because whilst we have mentors that we can latch onto, mentors or coaches to support us on this lonely journey, and we need to almost cultivate radical resilience to forge ahead amidst the many closed doors, amidst the barriers and obstacles we are faced. Do talk about the support, and other than your funders or business partners, what support is lacking, and what do you think is needed specifically for entrepreneurs overall, and maybe then more specifically in your business?
yeah, sure. I mean, I know from speaking from experience, this wasn't my first idea I've ever come up with trying to start a business. So, yeah, I've had many different ideas that obviously haven't come to fruition and weren't probably that good. So, having the support around you, specifically in your personal life, to make sure that you can carry on going. I mean, just because someone says this isn't really a good idea, it doesn't mean it might not work. It might not be at this moment in time be a good idea, but it can still be a good idea going forward. So I know from my side, having that really strong friendship group and also family around you that for me were very, very fundamental and instrumental in me being able to leave the corporate world and jump into this entrepreneurial space and try to start a business from absolutely nothing with no experience is something that I don't think anyone would be able to do it without that very strong support that I have. I mean, especially from the family side, but on my friendship side, a lot of people who have also started their own businesses, so they have learned a lot even from that space, and just talking through my problems that I've experiencing. I mean, you wear every single hat that you possibly can when you're starting a business, and in most cases you don't know a lot about any of it. So you have to find out either through experiences, but with people, or actually what I find is actually using the internet. The internet is your best tool and greatest. All the information's there and available. So not being afraid to look that up and acknowledge that you don't have all the answers at the right time, and finding out from other people is probably the best and the easiest way to do things.
What about, I mean, for those that don't know, Cale and I met through SEBA Ignition Academy's program that they run in terms of the enterprise supply development. It's called Level Up, and RCS Financial Services in South Africa, owned by BNP Paribas, they are the ones that sponsored this program, and that's how our paths crossed. So what about these type of programs? And I mean, I want you to be completely brutally honest. Do they support the journey for entrepreneurs? And what would you say needs to change in these ESD programs? Because certainly me personally, wearing the hat of project accelerator or leadership coach for the entrepreneurs, I have the pleasure of having, or facilitating design thinking, I have the pleasure of having all these different hats and supporting entrepreneurs on this journey. But what I also do is speak to some of my peers who also work in the ESD space, and what they say is not all of these programs are actually optimal for the journey, or the support is not the right level of support. Do talk to us about these type of programs. Are they supportive, and what do you think needs to change or improve?
Yeah, so from our experience with working with yourself and the Level Up team, it's been amazing. We actually feel that you guys are really invested in us and our success, and it's amazing. And I know a lot of other programs similar to this kind of just do it as a tick versus.
Cale, I lost you, or you lost me again. Sorry
No,
about
sorry.
that.
No, not a problem. Yeah, so I was saying most of the programs more like feels like a tick that it's something that they would have to do versus they actually really invested in and really want the people within the program to succeed. And I know from our side of things with the Level Up team, we've been exposed to, especially a few weeks ago, going to the Centec Africa Tech Week, where we were fortunate enough to be one of the finalists that pitched at the end of the day. But we weren't aware of this at all, and being exposed to that has been really, really amazing. And from that, we've had great connections and different avenues that have opened for us. But yeah, from our side, it really does feel like we're a partner, that you guys are really invested in our success. And it's not just us. When we've had other interactions with yourselves and other businesses within the cohort, you can actually see the passion and the, I'll kind of say like the love for the other businesses and wanting everyone to succeed. So I mean, from that side, it really is an amazing feeling being part of a program like this, where we actually feel like you're our number one supporter at the end of the day, which is absolutely amazing.
Thanks for that feedback. I wasn't soliciting some recognition there, but what I'm really trying to delve into is how can we make these programs better? So I'm looking at things like cross collaboration between entrepreneurs. Is that maybe something that needs to happen, where there's not a competitive offering, but entrepreneurs can actually look at collabing to help grow and scale one another's business? Is that maybe an angle, or do we need to look at mentoring that is a bit more direct in where the life stage is of that particular entrepreneur, which we do in Level Up. I can honestly pride ourselves in saying we try and match the right mentor with where that business owner is. But that's really where I was heading with that question, Cale. Have you got any more comments or closing comments on that question before we move on?
Yeah, definitely. So I know from experience throughout the program itself, entrepreneurs are very very caring and want other businesses to succeed. That's the one thing I have learned and been exposed to, even at different talks or conferences that we have been to. People want you to succeed because they know exactly how hard it is to start a business and become successful. And that's really is a great thing, and being exposed to other entrepreneurs who are further in the journey and that they know exactly the pain points that you've gone through and know the struggles. And again, it's very similar that they actually want you to succeed, and that really is an amazing thing to be a part of, and getting exposure to and learning and picking other people's brains and how they got past the kind of challenges that we're in at the moment, or kind of foresee ourselves, or even just parting words of advice and wisdom, which makes a huge difference at the end of the day for us. Someone who's just starting out, and again, it hasn't done this before. So I know I've said it before, but I'm very fortunate that I've surrounded myself with serial entrepreneurs who've done it before and have given part of that wisdom. But again, meeting new people throughout the Level Up and through the different conferences and to be part of, everyone just wants you to succeed, which is great. And it makes you really feel part of a community, even though there isn't an entrepreneurs per se group or anything like that. But everyone feels that they want you to succeed at the end of the day, which is great.
Mm-hmm. What I often hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is that not only what I hear from entrepreneurs, what I'm also observing, social media, we always want to share the successes. We always want to talk about what's working well, because there's almost this mask of we're doing it. We don't want to paint the picture of the stuff that's not working, the stuff that's beneath the surface, right? Would you say that it's important to almost change the narratives in this regard, because we're painting this picture that this is what success looks like, but what is the journey towards that? Which actually leapfrogs us into the next part of our conversation. What is their journey, and what are those lessons and challenges that you can share with other entrepreneurs and founders? What are the things that people are not talking about?
Yeah, it might sound a bit cliche, but you do learn the most from the mistakes that you make, whether it's in life or in business. If it was everything was rosy and plain sailing, I don't think half the solutions that get built today will be anywhere as good as they should be. I know that's from our own experience that it's just been a long journey. It wasn't an idea that was born a year ago or 2 years. It's been for us, it's been close to a 3-year journey to get to this point. And not giving up along the way is probably the biggest thing. If you believe in yourself and believe in you have a product, and just sticking throughout the journey and making sure that, it's not going to be 100% all the way, but it's going to be worth it at the end when you do get there. And it's that perseverance that you will need as an entrepreneur to make sure that you don't give up on the bad days, because there are lots of them. But again, it's those very few days that are really amazing that make up for it tenfold. Like I was saying earlier on, having the first customer go through the platform, I mean, I could have shouted around the entire neighborhood and told every single person I came across that, we've done this and look what's happened, and we've actually put something through the system and it works, and how amazing that is. So, and it just makes up for anything that kind of negative that's gone along throughout the journey itself.
So 3 years, do you want to maybe give us in year 1, year 2, year 3, what those lessons were? Because it's a different stage of the business. So talk to us in a bit more detail around what year 1 was about, and then continue with the rest of the years.
Yeah, sure. So the year 1 was, it seemed all kind of plain sailing for us. Let's see, we had some funding from a private individual, which was great. Things were coming along. We went talks with a big insurance group who wants to use the platform itself. And unfortunately, we wasted, I think, like 4 or 5, 6 months going along that route, because they unfortunately aren't really in the entrepreneurial space, and they wanted to make an offer to the business, which set us back. They wanted control, and it was something that was very unfounder friendly. And again, if it was just me on my own, I would have said, yes, please, where do I sign? But again, all my business partners who've done before said, okay, no, you can't give up. We can't give up the business at this stage. So unfortunately, that set us back a good 6 months in terms of the negotiations and trying to get to the point where we are. So we kind of had to reset from that point of view and saying, okay, well, where do we need to see ourselves in the next year or two, specifically in the next year? And the process along the way is a lot of the data's, it's quite challenging to get, and it's quite a beast on its own. And our IT partner Nick will tell you, he's very proud of this. I'm also very, very proud of the system that we built in the back end for Servisor. It really is complicated. I want to say the word beast, but it really is. There's a lot of moving parts that are going into it. And yeah, so that's thinking that the system is built and finished, and then doing some specific testing, and then finding out, this doesn't work, or this is missing, or this needs to happen, can be a bit downing on your spirits. But again, you don't know what you don't know, and that was the biggest thing for us. Again, in the second year, was just trying to make sure that the data that we have and all the endpoints that we have from other people that we get from are working, and that everything is 100% all the time, which can't generally always guarantee, but you can get pretty close to that. And then this final year that's coming up now, the third year, is unfortunately our things have changed in the years, and our private investor unfortunately pulled out. So we had to now find find funding. And again, it is all based on relationships that we have. Again, Nick has been in contact previously he was part of the Level Up program with his other business that he started, which is called Gotbots, which is a really great business itself. Yeah. And through that interactions, he came into contact with the guys from Launch Africa, and he said, okay, let's go chat to them. They're really nice guys, startup friendly. They want businesses to work. And yeah, we were very fortunate to pitch to them, and they invested in the business, and that relieved a lot of the headaches that we had in terms of the financial side. Because when there is no money, you can only do so much. So yeah, they come in right at the perfect time for us to help us to accelerate to get to the product that we have now. That is a final product that works really well, and we are very, 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 very proud of at the end of the day.
I'm hearing in year 1 that there was opportunity to almost what most businesses will do in a certain stage, but maybe not at the beginning, is a way to exit. And ultimately, that might be the plan, right? Because you're going to start a business and move into growth and scale of that business. But is this something that you're thinking? You said that if it was you alone, you would sign on the dotted line with that insurance company who wanted to buy this business, right? And have sole ownership. But what is the future plan in that regard? Because that is ultimately what we want to do, right? Or most entrepreneurs, they are innovative, they want to disrupt, and then they want to move on. Is this on the cards for Servisor? Is this something you might want to consider if you walk away and start something different that maybe excites you in a few years from now? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's a very long-term kind of goal for us here at Servisor. But I know from the problem that is identified here, it's not just a South African problem, it's an African problem, it's a world problem. No matter where you go in this world that comes around the car space, it's the same thing. There's no trust. People feel like they're getting ripped off. So we see a really, really big space for Servisor to play in, not just South Africa, but the rest of the world. So that's like very exciting for us to see that we can take this specific solution that's born in South Africa, that isn't being done anywhere else in the world, and take it to consumers around there that can immediately benefit. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're saving money, I mean, life's hard at the moment, just not for South Africans, but for most people. And just being able to save some money at the end of the day for a complete, as you're saying, a complete grudge purchase really makes us feel like we've really actually done something that's good for the customer at the end of the day. So yeah, there's lots that we see we can do with Servisor, specifically wanting to try be the authoritative body in the entire motor space, not just for your car servicing. So whenever you think of anything with your car, you would first come at mind would be Servisor. So that's our goal, and that will take quite a lot of work and planning to get to. So I don't see us anytime soon exiting this business at all. There's lots that we can build on it, and again, exciting taking it out of just South Africa to the rest of Africa first, and then possibly the rest of the world, which would be even more amazing.
That's so exciting. It's inspiring at the same time, because what you're saying is there's a gap. This is common ground wherever you go, and so let's build the business case for going global, so to speak, and let's make sure that the trust index, if I can also refer to it as that, within the South African population becomes the case study for when you do take it out further into Africa and outside globally as well. So that was year one, but I also heard in year one, do you want to respond to that before we move on?
Yeah, sure. Like for us, that'd be something amazing that we. Yeah, I mean, even thinking about having a solution that maybe possibly one day would be sitting out of South Africa is just amazing, and just really gets us going and really wants us to perform and get the solution really up and running and make sure it's a success.
And I mean, what's the plan? Is it you want to go outside Africa? How long from now? What's the projection?
So I mean, at least be another a year to 18 months. Once we've got South Africa pretty much nailed on and working perfectly, or close to perfect as possible, would be then looking at closer neighboring countries, particularly with much bigger markets. So Nigeria is not quite neighboring, but that would be a very good place to get into. Kenya again. So there's very, very large markets in Africa that we want to focus on once we've got South Africa right, because we're quite fortunate. It's a kind of a plug and play solution. So once we've got it completely working here in South Africa, it's just a few minor tweaks that we can take to specific countries itself. So it's the focus is getting it right here first.
But I know the infrastructure outside Africa is different. So you may have different pain points to deal with over there, in the same way that globally, the target market's different, the infrastructure is also different. So do you wait until you've perfected it in South Africa, or do you start having conversations now already? Is that something you have thought about, to have these conversations now, or are you waiting? What if somebody else latches onto the idea? What then?
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, there's a possibility of someone doing that at risk, but again, it's can't wear too many hats at the same time, unfortunately. I mean, getting it, our biggest focus in the moment, the priority is getting it right here. Like if we can, even if we just make it successful in South Africa, I mean, that'll be huge success for us. Everyone has grand ideas, and that is something we really want to do, get us out of South Africa, but making sure it's working right here. And again, it's building the brand here first. If someone decides to leverage off or try piggyback whatever we have done before, that's fine. We kind of believe what we have built and will stand the test of time. And we're not a fly-by-night business. We're building a really strong, powerful brand here that we can export to other countries. It's on the dartboard, but it's a little bit further in the future than what
I'm just challenging you, Cale. I'm just challenging you because I also know that sometimes becomes the comfort zones that entrepreneurs stay in, and they don't think about the big, hairy, audacious goals. They kind of get stuck with just the one thing, which is not necessarily the wrong way, because you want to make sure that you have a sleek product that's working, a service offering in your case that's working, and that it's robust to scale it. Because there's no point you're going to try and go out to other markets if it's not robust enough. So I also heard in year one there was CX, so the customer experience of the platform, so to speak. Are those potentially then some of the reasons why you're not yet able to focus? Because that was year one. Where are you? Oh, this bandwidth or the signal is giving us problems here. Anyway, so talk to me about the CX compared to year one to where it is now, year three. Because you're talking about getting it right before scaling or moving out. What's holding you back of scaling it if the platform and the CX is sleek?
Yeah, it's a good question. Looking back on where our first storyboards were compared to what it is now, it's literally chalk and cheese. Just looking back at our homepage from then to this now, it's like a completely different business at the end of the day. But again, we have a really good marketing partner on board with us. And it might go a gentleman called Rob Van Rooyen, who is very well known in the space, and he's always on top of things and understanding, okay, what works. It's science in the end of the day of what color a button should be, whether the button should be round or should it be square. It's actually amazing what goes on in this world, where even the minute detail like that makes a huge difference to what a customer does at the end of the day, whether they're going to click on the button or not click on the button. So when we first started out, we didn't have that insights around it, and had a very basic product that was very functional and it worked. It wasn't sleek and, like, to your point of really pretty and really user friendly. But I mean, I guess through time we've kind of built that in and made sure that it is customer focused and very easy. I mean, we've specifically built not an app. It's what you call a PWA, progressive web app. So it looks like an app, behaves like an app, but it's actually just a website. And when you're on your phone and you're doing it on your phone, that's most people on their phone doing stuff, and that's how we've built it. We've built it for that customer who's on their phone, and it really is a sleek product for your mobile experience. So yeah, like where we started out and where we are now is very, very, very different. And quite fortunate that we have started like that and understanding, okay, well, it works as in functionality, but now it works and it looks great.
Okay, so I'd like to throw in these curveball questions, as you will probably notice. For those that know me on this segment or any other segment that I host, I don't keep it rehearsed. I really just am intuitively guided by my guest and what he's saying, and then I kind of build on that. So let's think about year two. Year two, if my memory serves correct and I listened properly, it was more an investor challenges and finding new investors and making sure that we don't have our eggs in one basket. Year three, I think, is kind of a continuation of that, if I'm not mistaken. What am I missing? What else were some of the lessons again in 2 and 3?
So it was around the data and making sure that everything we had was working on that side. Again,
Yes.
things pop up that you never experienced, a thought would ever pop up based on just using the system for the first time. So yeah, that was probably the year 2 and a bit of year 3 at the moment.
So why I'm asking you to repeat it, because there was a method to the madness there. It's like this customer journeys, right? We need to be building data to enrich data. So let's talk about the buzz everywhere with AI. How are you leveraging AI, and have you built that into the platform, or is it a future state where you want to start building that in with the following in mind? You want to enrich the experience, one, but you potentially want to scale and on-sell or upsell, whatever the words are, maybe products and not just have a service. Is that something that you're exploring? Or if you cannot have that conversation here, because you might be giving away some insider visionary focuses, I would understand. But I'm just intrigued to find out, how are you enhancing and looking at scaling outside of just a service offering?
Yeah, so I mean, from our side, from day one, we've seen the biggest commodity, but the biggest value in our business actually having the customer itself, and what we can do with that information is a lot of information that we get from just having someone going through the platform itself that a lot of industries don't have of. So we kind of focus and make sure that we have a lot of that structures in place for being able to understand the different data that comes from the customer touch points and the customers themselves. So there's a focus of ours to make sure and see how we can sell the relevant on-sell different products, and specifically not really just different industry-wise products that can go on top of the platform itself. But right now there isn't anything AI that's built into it. I'm sure we will. It's definitely on the plan to see where we can incorporate it. But again, for us, it's making sure that what we have built is easy and can be used by anyone. Someone who's not very computer literate can go through it very easily, and it's something that we pride ourselves in. And again, it's always nice having people in your network who aren't very computer savvy, and if they can book it in their car and they do encounter a problem, it's very easy to raise that through the site itself or specifically direct with us. But yeah, so the plan would be to have AI incorporated in it, but for now it's more around the customer and what we can offer to them, versus the actual AI within it.
So the reason why I went there, because I remember reading somewhere in your bio something about intuitive solutions. so that's why I was heading in that direction. Which approach are you using to intuitively, cultivate new solutions for clients? And are you doing so just based on what your perceptions are, or really intuitively building it into almost a low-hanging fruit? You've got a platform, and this platform is able to then, gather data and then design the way forward more empathetically with the customer in mind, because we know we're not just going to service the car, we're going to need parts, and we want to make sure. I asked you what your why was, and most entrepreneurs, they stick to just talking about the business model. But if I had to say, the bigger why could potentially be having well-serviced cars that are not going to cause accidents on the road, right? The bigger why could be, other than the accessibility for customers, it's making sure that they don't leave it for last, that they are so confident that they know this is a reliable partner, not just a service provider, but a partner on their journey of having an optimal vehicle on the road. So what would you say then is the game plan around that? Because ultimately, isn't it another part of the why having safer cars on the road?
Oh yes, definitely, 100%. That is a good a focus of ours, making sure that the cars that are on the road are actually roadworthy and actually can stay much longer than what they probably would previously done. But a big thing that we've kind of noticed in this space is we want to move people away from those backyard mechanics where where the industry gets at a really negative viewpoint and very bad interactions happen there, and there's no recourse at the end of the day. And that's kind of what we've been trying to focus on and move customers away from that to really reputable places that what when you ask for an original equipment manufacturer part, that's the part you get. You know that the service that's being done, it's to the best of the ability, and then your car's not going to conk out in the next month or two because it's done haphazardly by someone that's just trying to make a buck at the end of the day.
Sure.
So that's been a really big focus of ours, is to make sure that we bring customers on, because that's a big market. It's on its own that go this route and kind of steer away from workshops and dealerships and that, because they see it as too expensive. But for us, we're making sure that we make it accessible for everyone. And again, at the end of the day, we also a B2B in this space. So we want to make it a competitive space where someone who only has 2, 3, 4 people working for them, being able to compete against your big workshops that have 10s and 20s and 30s of kind of people, because we do the hard yards for them, or the marketing side, and getting their feet through the door. So again, it's kind of evening that space out for the small business owner in the auto space to be able to get customers and compete on that scale.
So other than being, in simple terms, you like an aggregator, right? Finding the best price for servicing the vehicle. If there's parts needed, and that's where the business might be in the future state. What I'm seeing off the top is that if somebody doesn't have the funding, that potentially that can be another way of thinking about that customer journey and saying, well, if funding might be an issue and we're giving you the best quote based on the aggregation across these services, what do you call them? Service companies, what do you call them? I don't know what they're called.
We call them workshops.
Dealers, service dealers.
We see them as workshops, but they are pretty much dealers at the end of the day, dealerships,
Yes. So then I suppose then helping them financially too would be an enabler to even serving that customer differently. Is that something that Servisor is looking at doing in the future, in collaborating with partners that can financially support or enable them to make sure that they have their car sorted there and then? Because if you're aggregating, getting the best price, but still customers in terms of disposable income cannot afford it, are you coming up with those solutions for customers too?
Very much so. That's very, very close to us, and something that we want to be doing very, very soon. So we'll see now most websites that you go on is buy now, pay later, has that functionality. And that's something that we, since day one, have started out saying is that's what we want to be able to introduce, because breaking the payment over four months equal without extra any interest, it's us as the retailer or aggregator at the end of the day that pays for that service for the customer, which we'd rather have than not. So that's something that we have on our very, very near to-do list, and very fortunate within the launch Africa is kind of stable. They have a company that does that in Happy Pay. So again, so we're very fortunate with our partners that we can kind of offer that service sooner rather than later, which we really want to do. But again, it will be a first. Again, I don't think you go into most places in workshop and go have it buy now and pay later for your car service at the end of the day, which that will be another unique selling point for us and something great for the customer at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So we have about 10 minutes remaining. And so what I would like to talk about is the stuff that entrepreneurs don't talk about. And that's why we called the segment the entrepreneur mindset, and how you need to cultivate grit, right? That radical resilience to keep up. But what we don't say is the burnout. What we don't talk about is mental health. So this is normally the taboo subject that nobody wants to talk about, because it's like, oh no, I've got it all together. I know that I've got to not only work in the business and on the business, but let's get real for a moment here, Cale, because many entrepreneurs that I deal with, what's beneath the surface is that they are really struggling. and life happens. We're not just business owners or entrepreneurs. We still have other parts of our lives. And we're having to almost be this fully integrated person. But it's so difficult because 80% of our time is spent, and I say the word spent, in the business. And then we neglect other parts of ourselves, whether it is self-care, whether it is quality time with family, whether it is, what else? Setting boundaries or establishing boundaries. Those are just to name a few. In your experience of being a relatively new founder and entrepreneur, what have been some of your challenges in terms of mindset and the things that I've just described that has come up for you in your life, if you're comfortable sharing in any context or form?
Yeah, sure, no, definitely. I mean, the hardest part of this, that your mind actually never stops around the business. You're constantly thinking about how you can improve it or come across something that might work better. So I know you say like 80% of your time, but essentially close to 100% of your time is invested in it, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, you don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, you can't provide for your family. And that's the biggest stress for anyone at the end of the day. So as an entrepreneur, like if it doesn't work, it's on you, and you're going to make sure that, the weight of the world's on your shoulders when it comes to that. So that's being able to switch off. You kind of feel guilty for doing that, because, if you are switching off, then you're not thinking about it, and potentially there could be something that could go wrong or something that could do better. That's just the guilt that comes with it of being able to switch off. So, and I think that's why a lot of people probably don't when they're kind of starting out in this space, because if it doesn't work, it's they're the only person that's accountable for at the end of the day, that if it doesn't work. So you want to make sure that 200% of your time is invested in it. And unfortunately, that can be to the detriment of friendships or possibly relationships that you have in your personal life. But Ian, it's a short-term sacrifice, I guess, for hopefully the longer-term benefit at the end of the day, where you actually have a product that is successful, and you can kind of push back or sit back a little bit back and not be 200% invested and not wear 7 hats, and you can just wear the one hat and make sure it works perfectly at the end of the day.
I have found that there is this compromising of values when we are entrepreneurs, is that we don't know when to say no. And so that 100% of the time that we're investing is at the sacrifice of a value or values that we say we stand for. So we will say family is important to me, it's an important value, but then we're not giving our family the time. And I'm guilty of that. I'll put up my hand first and foremost. Like when somebody asks my 9-year-old, what is your mom busy with? All he says is she's working. So the concept of my kids of mom is that she's always working, she's always busy, she's always at her laptop or on her phone screen doing something. Yeah. And that's a compromising of our value system. And when do we then say no? Because at the end of the day, if we're compromising our values, we're actually compromising who we are authentically and not being in truth. What do you respond to that? And where do you draw the line?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. The hardest part is to say no. Saying no is the hardest thing in most instances. But yeah, and like for me, it's also you kind of forget about yourself because you are, to your point, pushing other things aside, that you put yourself all the way at the bottom because you know you haven't made time for this person or specifically doing this. And and that's probably another thing that's a lot of people actually kind of get the burnout that they have in trying to start businesses and run them, because your needs are all the way at the bottom, because you really are compromising on a lot of stuff by trying to make it successful and pushing things to the side. So kind of changing that mindset is, it's hard to do, but it's great when you have people in your corner like yourself who remind you of that and celebrate the successes of yourself and make sure you do spend the time on yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you're in a better space and you are celebrating that, it will trickle and obviously impact the rest of how you are in your work and your family space at the end of the day.
Because we end up sabotaging ourselves along the way, and the statistics around how many businesses start and close down based on exactly this part of our discussion: self-care, mental health and wellness, burnout, compromising of value systems, partners no longer gelling because one partner has this idea in mind and the other has that in mind. So there's a lot of things to consider in making sure that you cultivate the right mindset that is optimal. And so it does mean letting go of certain behaviors and habits that will sabotage you and ultimately the business in the end. So hence why I like to bring in this angle of the conversation, because nobody wants to talk about it, and everyone forgets that it could be the demise of that very business that you're so passionately inspired to impact the world with, So, yeah. In the last few minutes that we have left, just your top messages or lessons or golden nuggets that you want to leave the audience with as a founder.
Yeah, so probably what I want to share is most like everyone has experience or an idea that they can think about or try get off the ground. I mean, I know the first time it generally doesn't work, and the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, I don't know how many times, but again, just think of something and carry on going with it at the end of the day. It might not work out the first time, but eventually you'll catch on to something that really is something that can be viable and really change not only your life, but other people at the end of the day. I think we all want to build solutions that at the end of the day help customers, if it's into their pocket or better understanding things. And just making sure that you don't give up when the first time is a no and the second time's a no or the third time's a no. A lot of people get a lot of no's, and eventually it just takes that one yes to get you going and change not only yours but everyone else's trajectory in the space.
And what I'm hearing you say there is it's about it's about asset building for yourself and building that legacy for you and your family, but it's more than that. It's making sure that you make that difference, not just at the local or national phase, but internationally as well, so that you're impacting lives. Lastly, the last thing that comes to mind for me is really around, if you had to tell somebody who's got that cushy corporate salary and you've got such a beautiful corporate background, and your studies could dictate that you could be doing something radically different with your life, right?
Yeah.
But if you had a chance to do this over again, would you give up that comfort zone of that cushy corporate salary to do what you're doing, and why?
110%, yes. For all the challenges had, I mean, the reward is, even at this stage in the journey, is immense. I'm just growing in my own personal space of taking that risk has been really rewarding, and I highly recommend it if someone who is even in a really good corporate space and has a really good trajectory to challenge themselves to try and think of something that will take them out of that comfort zone. And obviously you need to have the backing of your family and your friends, and obviously having an idea that possibly could work. But yeah, I wouldn't change it for anything. I've really enjoyed this experience. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was just, again, getting to the point of having the idea that not only I believed in it, someone else believed in, and someone else was willing to invest in and get going. So yeah, I mean, if I could have done this earlier in my career, I definitely would have. But again, things happen at the right times for the right reasons. So yeah, I'm very, 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 very fortunate where I am at the moment.
Would you say that a lot of that corporate experience has actually served you in the capacity of an entrepreneur? It's come sort of full circle. I can certainly attest to saying all the things that I did in my corporate stint as an entrepreneur today, it's serving me. But has it been the same experience for you?
Yes, very much so. So I know I'm very, very fortunate in positions that I've had in those amazing companies that I've worked at and been exposed to the runnings of businesses from a group level to an organizational to a product level. It's really exposed me to how to run a business and run it well enough that it actually works. so yeah, like I mean, again, I wouldn't change my corporate experience, even my degree that I studied, which is the most random degree that I've ever studied. I wouldn't change anything at the moment because it's everything's a learning spot, and it's got me to the place where I am today.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you, Cale. Do stay with me before I end this live. We normally do a debrief with our guest afterwards, just briefly for 2 minutes. But I want to thank those that have joined us. I hope you found Cale's journey inspiring. And I hope that you feel that it's not about being stuck in a system of being in a job, in the typical go to school, go and study, go and do the corporate stint, and you stay there forever. You can make a difference and disrupt industries and impact people's lives by finding the courage to say yes and taking that call to adventure, even amidst so many trials that you'll face along the way. So I want to thank Cale. I want to thank those that are here. We'll put his details in, and really just, I can't wait to see where Servisor is going in the not so distant future. Anything you want to say in closing to those that are listening before I end the live?
Yeah, go for it. That's the only way you can do it. You only know once you've tried at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks very much, Homie. It's been great being on here. Thanks very much, Anissa. Appreciate it.
It's only a pleasure. So I'm going to end the live, but don't go away, Cale. And then I'll end on Instagram as well. Thanks, Instagram, that followers that have been here. Thank you.
Thanks.